Hey, and welcome back to another Take 5. This video will be about maps. And maps are variable maps, not maps as in world maps, not levels. So maps for blueprints here allow you to do something pretty handy. And that is you can have a parameter that is associated with um, another parameter, specifically associated. So, or a variable and associated with a parameter. So that's what I'm going to show you here. Take, for example, my attributes string over here. We're going to go to the right over here, and we're going to drop down. We're going to go to maps. So we're going to change it to a map. And now what happens up here is it goes from a string to a string and an integer, which basically means that it's now a string, and that string value is mapped to an integer value. And so the string is the key, and the integer is the value. So what ends up happening is if you enter, you can put in a string here. Basically, we could make this. You could call this attack speed, right? And something interesting about this is, well, so this, since this is a string, let's put a space in there. So if you wanted to go and make a game that consisted of using different uh, different what are they, like abilities and attributes and things like that for your character, and you wanted to have values associated with all of them for maybe your gear to spawn with, you can have an entire map that is full of values associated with specific names, and these names can then be taken as the key, and you can check what name it is, and then you can do something based on the name. You can get the name. If basically, let me show you how this works. If you have the map and you're going to search through it, you would do a find, and because you know what the key is, you know that you want to get attack speed. So you put attack speed in there, and it's going to get the value that was at attack speed. And so with maps, you could have that be 0.5, because it's not an integer, you can't do this. But if we put this to a float, we would go, let's change that. And let's now delete this, Alt, click, and we'll connect that back to there. So now we can go back in here and put 0.5 in here. So what would happen is, like, if you, oh, I got to compile that. If you wanted to have 50% attack speed added to your character, now you have this variable that's called attack speed that you know you can grab from this. You can also do things like making um, multiple values in one key that you can choose from, but that's a little bit more advanced, and I'll kind of explain that later in another video, because you have to use something called a structure. And a structure allows you to have multiple variables contained inside of one variable that can be used as an array. And then you would map that value here, your key would map to that structure, and that structure would contain those other values. So it would have, you could say my string attack speed is then mapped to the structure of a minimum attack speed threshold and a maximum attack speed threshold, right? And then you can use those two values to create a random number between them when you're spawning an item, for example, something like that. And then it would get that random attack speed value. Um, Again, this works a lot like the set. You cannot add another one if the values are empty. It won't let you. So you have to fill them in. And you can do things like contains to check and see if the key is there. If it has a key, you can use that. And it'll have a conditional statement with a branch you can use. You can also do other things like, let's go to utilities maps. You can clear just like most things like this. You can check for you can get the keys. You can get the length of the attributes map. You can find out how many items it has or how many elements. You can remove an element. You can also get the values. So if you just want to grab all of the values and you don't care about the keys, there you go. If you just want to get the keys, then you get the keys right here, and now you have all the keys, and you can go through all the keys, and you can look for a specific one that way, but really that's what this is for, find. But if you just wanted to take these keys and pass them all to some other location, you could do that with this. So that's another a really handy um, uh, feature here that is definitely something you'll probably want to take advantage of if you get more into that, into building a game that requires keeping track of a lot of data like that. And um, and so yeah, that's maps.